Hello, hello, hello. Subtitles are working. All good. Hello, friends. Hello. My name is Fiona. I use she, her sorry, what am I talking about? I use she, her pronouns, not she, her podcasts. And this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, in which I spend an hour or two going for an RPG that's caught my interest or has been randomly selected by me, either from the Bookcase of Doom or the Google Drive of Mystery. I hope you're doing well, friends. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, busy couple of days. I know I always say that. I always start that with the stream. I'm like, oh, and I'm just going, oh gosh, so much to do. But it's all good, and I really like doing these streams because it gives me a chance to sort of settle and to do some reading. So I do think reading is fundamental, but also like just reading RPGs, just to be like, oh, I think of this RPG or learn some stuff. So I hope you're doing well wherever you are in your part of the woods. Let's just get straight into it, friends, because you know times are ticking, as they say. And today, friends, yeah, let's talk about this game. So Too Long Didn't Read today is going to be on Cogs, Cakes and Swordsticks, Cracking Adventures in the Empire of Steam. It's an RPG by Lynn Hardy, and it came up on my list. It's from originally published by Modifius, and it's roughly over 10 years old. And if you haven't guessed, it's a bit pulpy, it's a bit steampunk, all the things. I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not the biggest fan of steampunk. To be honest with you, I mean, I've read a couple of books which have steampunk elements on it. I just find it a bit ugh. Like it's always very much nostalgia, very much like a brouhaha for the Empire, and I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. And also, often, as an ex said to me once a long time ago, it's just sticking cogs on a hat and be done with it. And I'm like, he was right. So anyway, we're gonna see how it goes. So as always, we're gonna go look at the magazine copy, the marketing copy, and then we're going to go dive into as much of the PDF as possible. One thing I want to note, I think in that link I've given to Nightbot, that is the free preview of it. I'm actually not going to be looking at that one. I'm going to be looking at the actual book itself. And the reason is I looked at the free preview and I've put it in, etc. Because obviously I do want people to look at these games and see what it is. The preview itself is only 8 pages long, so it's not a quick start, and I don't think that's going to give us enough. When I had a quick look at it, I was like, oh, it's not going to give us enough of like what the game mechanics are, what is this, the vibe is. So I've put the link to the free preview so people can look along, but I'm actually today going to look at the, it's called the Complete Collection, I believe. So it's got the core book, which is about 55 pages, and then it's got some additional expansions, which we're not going to be looking at, but just so I didn't want to just, it's just me being transparent. So I looked at it and I was like, 8 pages, and I don't think there's enough in here for me to talk about when we're doing it. So I went ahead and just got the actual PDF, and we'll see if it was worth the £10 I paid for it. But as always, let's begin with some disclaimers. 1, I have not been sponsored to do this. This is just me going, what RPGs should I read today? And this came up. So equally, this is sort of more of a critique than anything. Hopefully not too much of a criticism. Again, I know I've just sort of outlined my biases of why I don't necessarily like steampunk myself. But again, we're just going to go through it and see what we like. I also want to note that this is over 10 years old. So that should tell you a lot. Legacy is the word I'm thinking of here, but we'll see. Again, I like to be proved wrong about these things. Equally, I am not a game designer by any means. I've played a lot of games, I've run a lot of games, and I read a lot of games. But this is to just get us, see what else is out there and just something a bit more unusual. But again, like I said, I've not played these games or anything like that. Oh, hello, Pennant Knight. Hello. Shouldn't you be at? Well, actually, no. It's after work, isn't it? So you should be all right. Hello. It's nice to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoy whatever this is going to be. What was I going to say on top of that? So yeah, I'm not a game designer by any means, but I am, so I've not, and also it's the first time reading this through, so I might not understand some of the mechanics. I'm going to be voicing my thoughts out loud about me. If I was a game master that was going to run this, what things would I need on that point? Well, and also in terms of accessibility, again, it's going to be, it says I am at work, but it's only me in the office, so I can have it on in the background. Great. I fully endorse putting me on in the background to my dulcet tones to soothe the way as you're busy doing very important work. So very pleased to hear. What was I going to say on top of that? So we're also going to look at accessibility. If there's anything that should be improved, let's face it, it's a 10-year-old PDF. It's probably not going to have too much in terms of alt text. That's fine. We'll deal with that. But we'll see what, if anything, we could improve now. We've got 10 years. For 10 years on, what can we look at? Online stuff. And finally, content warnings. as I said, it's steampunk. For me, steampunk is this nostalgia, this Victoriana, which often has roots in colonialism. That's just a fact, and I just wanted to put that out there, and we'll see as we go on. I suspect this is supposed to be a bit more whimsical, a bit more like, oh gosh, that sort of side of it, but it also might not be for you. So I'm just going to say that so we can hear it, and if you want to take a step away because you're like, I don't like this game, that is a-okay. Do not worry. And I appreciate you. Most people will be doing more work, more important things than listen to me read out a book that I have no idea about and I'm apprehensive about. Anyway, enough of that. Away from me and into the screen itself, the actual sort of, maybe move it across a little bit. So this is what it looks like on DriveThruRPG. This is, like I said, this is the main core book. You can get the free preview in that link I've sent, but that's only 8 pages long. The actual book itself is about 55 pages. I am going to be looking at the collected edition, which is over 100 pages, but that's because it's got some additional expansions in it. I think it's got this, well, you can't see it because I've moved it, this Atlas in the Clouds sort of expansion in it. But yeah, as you can see, it was an Electrum bestseller and a unique rule system, and published by Modifius. And it got some good reviews as well. And right now, I appreciate you can see it there. It's down. It's got some half price and it's got some discounts. So it's roughly, to get just the core book, it's about £5 or about $7. So if you want to check it out, you can. We'll see. So let's look. Click more for more discounts. Not going to do that. Let's have a look as always. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's simple enough. The name of the writer is on the cover, which is always a tick. As you can see, there are cogs in the steam coming out from the teapot. Yeah, fine. You know what? It does the job. It does the job. It's not, for me, it's not actually eye-catching. I actually would like to have some cakes on here, to be honest with you. Swordsticks. I don't know. I think it does the job. It's like, let's just do something simple and basic, and it's done it. But I don't think it's as eye-catching as it could be. Anyway, let's get straight into it, my friends. So, Cogs, Cakes, and Swordsticks is Lynn Hardy's game of steampunk pulp adventure designed to be played in the comfort of your favourite tea shop with your friends, and requiring nothing more than your imagination, a pen, napkins, and a sugar cube. Should be a 6-sided die, but not should a 6-sided die not be readily forthcoming. So again, we've got that tone of that sort of like haha, that sort of thing, which is quite pleasant, quite nice. I do like the idea of like. I guess it won't say it, but like actually playing this in a tea shop or in a cafe of some sort. I mean, there's always these things about when you play RPGs in other places other than like the comfort of your own home. Like often it's the pub or back room of a pub, which can be fine, but I sometimes find it a bit overwhelming when there's lots of noise. I can't hear people, and there's also the sort of the pressure to drink as well, alcoholic beverages. Here, I could just imagine this would be quite nice. As having that sort of tea shop thing, but I don't know how many tea shops are around anymore. I think there's definitely more in the north than the south. That said, they also could be quite expensive in the south, knowing me. So inside you will find a nice simple introductory guide to get you playing as quickly as possible, including a short adventure with pre-generated characters. Oh, tick, nice. As well as ever so slightly more detailed rules about how to create your characters of your own and how to run a full game of Cogs, Cakes, and Swordsticks. Also contained within are details of the fantastical world in which the game takes place, and another longer adventure set against the backdrop of the British Museum. So this is interesting. Again, 55 pages. Again, this is the core book as well. So not only do we have like a short adventure with like pre-gens to get us started, but we have like a longer one, so that's 2 big adventures. That's not too bad. We have several, but yes, I live in the north. Yes, I know you do. So I was thinking to myself, yeah, you probably have quite a few of them. Like, well, have you ever played an RPG in one of these things, or have you? Is it sort of frowned upon? And also the backdrop of the British Museum. Interesting. Again, I'm a big fan of having like places where I've been there, and using that as a anchor point to make it sort of grounded, perhaps. Grounded, she says, looking at a game about steampunk. So grab the cake of your choice and a piping hot cup of tea and settle down and allow us to welcome you to this empire of steam, an age of marvellous gizmos and mad inventors, Babbage engines, and flying steamships, dashing heroes and femme fatales, and the odd fiendish villain for good measure. In short, a time of exploration, intrigue, and high adventure. Excellent. So, let's see what we've got. So we've got 55 pages of the pulp adventure. The Empire scene setting, so that's good. Full introductory and full rules, 2 adventures. Fabulous steampunk by Jeff Bernard. Now I've actually met that man, Jeff Bernard. I met him at a convention years and years ago, and he drew a portrait of me, like a little it was like a little card which had like he did lots of stuff about like save water, drink more tea, or something like that. So I will recognise his artwork. How exciting! Tea cake adventure. Actually, we couldn't fit the tea and cake inside as it was getting frightfully messy. Interesting. So, there we go. So it's all interesting. And I was like, Jeff Bernard, how exciting. All right, team, let's get rid of Crow, get rid of that thing, and we'll just go straight into it. So, as I said, about the cover, but you know what? It does the job. It's fine. Again, maybe if I was going to remake this, maybe would make it more like exciting, so it's more like maybe an airship or something like that, like something maybe media res. Because I think, to be fair, I've been spoiled a little bit recently because I've been reading a lot of Eberron for the DM's book club. So seeing this and this playing forth, I'm like, it should be haha rather than people sitting around drinking tea. But maybe that's not what this game is about. But yeah, Empire of Steam does fill me with a little bit of about it, but let's go for it. No alt text as we predicted. It does say on the corner there. Oh, let me move this down a bit. There we go. It does say 160 pages, but as I said, this is going to show when we go to the thing. Oh, we've got the thing here. Yeah, and we've read all that. That's the back page. So, and Modifius Entertainment. Look at that. There's a background image there. Okay, so yeah, it's like I said, this is the collected edition I'm looking at just because it was a little bit cheaper to get everything in. But if you just want the normal book, it's about 5 pages. There you go. Jeff Bernard. And the Island of Dr. Jeff. God, that's still, well, I don't know if that's still working, but there you go. All right. So this is the main book we're going to look at, book 1. Like I said, book 2 and book 3, they're like the sort of expansions. So we've got, in book 1, we've got 4 chapters and 5, which is the sample chapters, which is great. So that's just the pre-gens. Yeah, so hopefully it should be straightforward. And again, I like the little bits of decoration. Obviously, in case you didn't know, there's Cogs, so it must be steampunk. Easy to read, not hyperlinked, of course, but again, maybe if it was going to be redone in future, you'd have it hyperlinked. All right, let's get going. Ooh, a blank page. Ooh, look at, yeah, I recognise Jeff's pictures there. Yeah, Jeff always had this thing about not too much in details of the face. That's quite nice. I quite like that. Oh, this is what I don't like though. Blooming 2 columns. All right, team, bear with me. All right, so, and also it's quite tiny writing. Oh Lord. Oh no. Go back, Fiona. There we go. We'll have to deal with it like this. So, Act 1, the prologue. So Cogs, Cakes and Swordsticks is a steampunk pulp adventure. It was originally conceived to be played in a tea shop with your friends and the minimum fuss and nonsense. Not that you need a tea shop, of course. Anywhere comfortable will do, but we will advise against fuss and nonsense wherever possible. Okay, nice and friendly start. But what is steampunk? Well, I've already said what I think it is. Cogs. You stick a cog on it and it's steampunk. In all honesty, it means different things to different people. Many people will have their first encounter with steampunk through William Gibson's The Difference Engine. And yet others will have the R. Talsoren's Castle Falkenstein's role-playing game. I've not heard of that one. Oh, maybe I'll have a look that one up later. The underlying themes behind it are much older though and can be found most famously in the works of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, amongst others. The so-called scientific romances. These tended to be sweeping adventure stories or commentaries on society with science acting very much as a supporting character or a means to an end. That's quite a nice little definition of it. Steampunk is effectively a much newer subgenre of these tales, usually set in Victorian or Edwardian era and having its core-powered equivalents of modern technological devices, making it effectively an alternate history. In steampunk, as mentioned above, the age of steam never made way for the age of electronics. The idea of beauty in design is still very much alive, not only as an item of be functional, but it also should be attractive as well. Progress and etiquette march hand in hand towards the steam-shrouded future. But what about pulp adventure? The name of pulp derives from the cheap paper these fiction magazines were printed on, the first of which appeared around in 1896. They contained stories, often by famous authors, covering a wide range of genres from crime thrillers and mysteries through romance, sport, and fantasy to science fiction. Often they were a little racy, but they were always larger than life. Notable characters that appeared in pulps, often serialized versions of proper novels, included Buck Rogers, Conan the Barbarian, Doc Savage, and John Carter of Mars. Ah yes, that was a film I didn't watch. And of course, the most famous modern proponent of the genre would be Indiana Jones. CCNS is not intended to be a darkly realistic, gritty game all focused on the equalities and injustices of the actual historical period it is set in. Steampunk in CC&S is defined by the ideals of Victorian science and popular fiction. Rugged heroes, beautiful femme fatales, bluff engineers, and devious villains, and lots and lots of magnificent steam-powered technology. History is the inspiration and not the master. Yes, that's a nice thing to say, but maybe we should acknowledge this, though. Maybe we should acknowledge it. So, to play CCNS, you will need napkins, or good old-fashioned paper, pens or pencils, one six-sided die, or a sugar cube with dots put it. Okay, it's going on about the sugar cubes, I get it. And your imagination. And preferably tea and cake. Lots of tea and cake. You can never have enough tea and cake. You are Victorian, after all. And oh yeah, you guys can see that. And what is a role-playing game? We kind of know this. That's fine. So one person is the game master. So we don't have necessarily a special name for us. That's fine. Other players. Okay, there is no single correct way to play a role-playing game, but there are potentially a few wrong ones. There are also many styles of game and different types of players. The idea of CC&S is to have fun telling epic tales of daring do with your friends. Sometimes it is not as easy as it sounds, so before we go down to the nitty-gritty of how the game works, let's have a look at some ways to make it fun. Okay. A great deal of the responsibility of whether a game stands or falls lies squarely with the GM. Right. I don't think that's true, but okay. Which is why it's such a responsible role to take on. As a general rule, if you're not happy as the GM with setting rules or setting of the rules of the game, then you won't perform to the best of your abilities. So choose wisely. It takes a lot of effort to run games, so they have to be something that you will enjoy putting effort into. If you're miserable and unhappy with what you're doing, then it's going to be virtually impossible for the players to enjoy themselves either. Yeah, but what if the reason why that is because the players aren't working with you? I don't think it's just with the GM, I think it's with everyone. The GM has last say on things. It's also essential for the GM to be aware of their players' likes and dislikes. So think carefully. Do the players prefer investigative stories or tales of all-out dashing about hitting things? Do they like horror or sky pirates? Social machinations? Yeah, or exploring new worlds? Bear all this in mind when developing stories so you can tailor them to their preferences. And most importantly, don't force them into situations you know they won't enjoy because it looks good on paper. And take care of the themes covered doesn't upset or offend anyone. Wow, look at that. That whole paragraph is basically saying, safety tools, huh? I may have missed this, but when was this written or published? It was 2024 when it... no, 2014. Sorry, I've been talking about D&D. 2014 is when it was added to the database. So 2013, 2014 is when this came out. It could be the best idea for a scenario, but it flies in the face of everything you know they'll enjoy. It will fall flat on said face come game time. In all likelihood, as a GM, you'll find yourself with a mixed group that likes a bit of everything. In that case, woohoo! It makes life so much easier and it allows you to keep things fresh by jumping about genres and themes. Even if you have a group that has fairly limited tastes, it doesn't hurt every now and then to introduce a new element to keep them on their toes, so long as it isn't too far removed from their usual preferences or something that they'll absolutely hate. Ooh. A key bit of advice is to not get too precious about the stories you dream up. A role-playing game is not the same as a novel. It is a living, organic thing that grows in playing. You can plant the seed, water it, and nurture it, but what it becomes in the end is only partially in your hands. Annoying as it can be, players often come up with far more entertaining ways of solving problems that you've created than you will ever have thought of. But we don't really mean annoying, you know. It's more of the lines of, oh, fluff, why didn't I think of that? That's brilliant. Be prepared to roll with the punches, to quote the popular parlance. This is, of course, another reason why the GM, you must be confident and well versed in the game you're running. If the players throw something unexpected at you, you need... So I'm trying to work out what that picture is. Oh, it's the lady behind this person, the person wearing the dress. I was like, what's wrong with this person's arm? Need to be able to deal quickly and effectively so it doesn't impact the flow of the game. There's nothing worse than everything stopping for 10 minutes while someone goes to look something up. Make a decision, deliver it with panache, and stick with it. If it turns out later you were wrong, apologise. After all, you're only human, no matter what the players might think. If in doubt, err in the player's favour. Remember that this is also their adventure, and the whole point is that they'll succeed in the end. I quite like that last line, actually. Because I agree, I have a rule of, like, I'll take myself 30 seconds to look something up, and then I'll go with my gut. And more often than not, it is nice to be like, oh, go on, let the players do it. Because, I think it's not the GM's responsibility to make sure that everyone's having a good time. It's everyone's responsibility. So as long as they're not being really cheeky about it, like, it's always offering compromises and stuff. But yeah, it should not take 10 minutes for sure. Another important job that the GM has to carry out is making sure that everyone involved in creating the story. If you have a player who likes to quietly ponder what's going on, make sure you include something that will draw them into the game, be it a puzzle that only they can solve, or a piece of knowledge that only they might know. We don't mean you need to force them into being a chatterbox, just give them a way into the plot. Badgering people into doing something they aren't comfortable with will ruin the game for all concerned. Not everyone wants to be the centre of attention, but they do like to know that their opinions are valued. You also need to make sure that no one monopolizes the game. Okay, we get the idea of this. I kind of wish, you know what this needs to be? It's like this is one section, and it's giving advice for the GM. Fine, no problem. Maybe have some headings, like those player principles we talked about, or the GM principles. So otherwise it's just a bit of an essay on stuff, which is fine, but it's a bit like, it's a bit much, isn't it? Look at this. It's like a broadsheet. Tiny writing, 2 columns, dislike. Alright, let's move on a little bit, because I just want to, be careful what sort of game, listen to what other players want. It's all about giving and taking. Yes, thank goodness. So, CC and S comes with its own set of rules which are specifically designed to be learnt fast and quick to implement. It can take a lot of confidence to run a rules-like game if you're not used to them, say in the way that live role players will tend to be. That goes for the setting. If you like the rules but not the background, meddle with it until you're happy. Nice. Okay. Alright, moving on. So, hitting the ground running. So this particular section is to give you an intro, a very quick intro to the world of Cogs, Cakes and Swordsticks. A pick up and play guide, if you will. That will give you everything you need to play for your first game within a few minutes. To help with that, we've trimmed down the rules to the barest minimum, as well as providing characters and a story for you to play through. If, however, you'd like to get right down to the nitty-gritty straight away, skip ahead to chapter 2. We're creating characters, etc. No, I think this is fine. So, if you have your cup of tea and a slice of cake ready, let us begin. The Empire of Steam. Thanks to Charles Babbage, successfully inventing the mechanical equivalent of the computer in the late 1830s, Her Majesty Queen Victoria's empire has gone from strength to strength and is the envy of the world. In order to oversee the growing number of Babbage engines, Sir Robert Peel set up the Ministry of Computeral Sciences in 1843. The entire network was finally linked together by telegraphic cables in 1869. The Great Exhibition in London in 1851 brought yet more technology into the limelight, where Henry Giffard demonstrated his first dirigibles. This rapidly led to the advent of air travel, or at least for those who could afford it. Another marvel of the modern age is Her Majesty's flying steam city Atlantis. One of these things is not like the others. the brainchild of engineering genius Robert Stevenson and his unarguably even more talented friend Isambard Kingdom Brunel. So it's nice that they've got like literally historical figures that they've brought in there. It took over 10 years to build the floating city, which opened for business in 1875. But Great Britain was not the only country to focus on technological advancement. Across the Atlantic Ocean, the publication of Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon in 1865 had triggered a bitter space race between America and Canada, with both countries determined to be the first to reach the lunar surface. Allow us to present the rules. Okay, so we've got a bit of a setting there. A couple of paragraphs. Fine. I wonder, what if we could set this, but in, like I said, like Canada, in America, in, I don't know, Spain, France, Germany, India, you know, that could be, and we're back, but obviously being mindful of colonialism, maybe changing it so that, you know, again, that alternate history thing, that might be more interesting. Allow us to present the rules. In this section, we introduce the basic rules of the game, including details of a character's skill and how to make use of them. So the vital statistics, we have 3 defining attributes. We've got Cogs, we've got Cakes, and we've got Swordsticks. Fine. You know what? Repeat it, people might remember it. So Cogs is mental and or technical abilities and skills, such as engineering, medicine, or flying. Cakes is social skills and personality, basically how other people see you and how they interact with you. I quite like that. Cakes for social stuff. And then Swordsticks is physical skills such as sporting or fighting abilities. Each attribute has a descriptive name to give you an idea of what it allows that character to do. So, for example, Mr. Pettifer's cog attribute, see over, so presumably there's a page somewhere, is signed, sealed, and delivered, which covers his knowledge of the parcel delivery business, briefly summarised in brackets after the attribute name. There is also a number after the attribute description, either a +2 or a +3, which we'll talk about in the next action. So rolling the dice, so what do the numbers next to the attribute actually mean? Well, they represent how good a character is at that particular set of skills. So in order to attempt to use those skills during the game, the player needs to state what the character is doing and which attribute they're going to use for it. Provided the GM agrees, he or she then sets a difficulty for the attempt based on the circumstances. See the table below. So here we go. Excellent. The player then rolls a d6 dice and adds the attribute to it. Okay, so it's just a d6 plus an attribute. Fine. As long as it equals or beats the difficulty set by the GM, then the player succeeds. If the character doesn't have a relative attribute, they can still attempt the roll, but with only a +1 if it's a simple, unskilled action, or no modifier. Or maybe even a penalty if the GM is feeling especially strict for a complex skill action. But what about if it comes to things like fisticuffs or chastes, where the character is acting directly against someone else? Well, these are known as opposed actions, and instead of the GM assigning a difficulty level, the characters involved roll their dice, remembering to add the relevant attribute modifier. The GM rolls on behalf of the person they're opposing. Now compare rolls. Whoever achieves the highest result wins. So, if a character has the highest result, they catch up to the person they're chasing, or best the foe they're fighting. If not, their opponent gets away, or the character's turn to receive a good thrashing. Right, so it's minimizing it, simplifying it, fantastic, great. Probably very good if you were doing like a live stream stuff like that. Yep, it's just a d6 plus a thing. We're not going to go back and forth. We're seeing sort of the overview of it rather than the minutiae of it. But what happens when a person loses an action roll during a fight? Well, that character also becomes injured and loses a +1 from each of their attributes. Ooh, oh no. So, +3 becomes a +2 becomes 1, etc. If they are injured again, they lose another +1, and they can keep taking injuries until their highest attribute is reduced to 0. Then they fall unconscious. Oh, interesting. So even if that's from each of their attributes. So if you only had a +1 in, say, Cakes, but your highest was a +3 in Swordsticks, as soon as it goes to 0 on Cakes, you can still keep going. To bring a character back from the brink, they will require some sort of medical attention. A first aid roll, or similarly medical-related rolls, will restore +1 to every attribute. Damage in CC and S is mostly handled with the grand tradition of pulp adventures, and in this introductory scenario, it really shouldn't result in any permanent disabling injury or death. But do encourage players to give you lots of lovely gory details of their wounds. After all, the ladies do love a man with interesting scars. Well, okay, that's definitely not a line that I would put in. Nope. So there we go. These are the only details you need to play through the scenario below. The attribute descriptions may seem broad at first, but as long as you can convince the GM that an action that you wish to take should be covered by a particular attribute, everything will be fine. Don't be too upset if the GM says no, though. Their word is final, although hopefully they'll explain why they've said no or make an alternative suggestion. Oh, okay, so we've got difficult, very easy, which is 2, and then it goes all the way to practically impossible, which is a 9. So okay, it's, again, dead straightforward, something that you can easily, as a GM, make up on the fly a little bit. That looks all right. And then this is the quick start scenario. We've got Mr. William Pettifer, we've got Mr. Septimus Jenkins, and Miss Arabella Banks. Again, I would absolutely change all these stuff around, but this is what I do quite like these little. It tells you exactly what these are, and then we've got some specific ones here, like open, honest face inspires confidence and confidences. So I quite like that, and a little background as well. So again, straightforward enough to it seems straightforward, and I can imagine making a character it would be quite straightforward as well. All right, but as always, we never really look at the quick start scenario because that's something you can do in your own time. Look at that guy. Oh yeah. Oh, Jeff's work is great. So yeah, so this is where it ended. The quick preview. So actually, it's probably would have been straightforward stuff, but I do want to see what else we have in here. So there you go, chapter 2. That's quite a good picture. That's quite nice. You know what, and I quite like they've gone, here's the basic thing, and that is your preview for the free stuff. Go away and try it. So it's simple, straightforward enough, and yeah, okay so far. So in chapter 1, we introduced you to the basic rules and setting behind Cogs, Cakes, and Swordsticks. Now, with your permission, let's look at those rules again, this time with all the bells and whistles. Now it's time to create your own character from scratch. The aim is to keep this process as simple as possible. It really shouldn't take very long at all, so the GM will want to make sure that they have a story ready to run when you're all finished. A further example, oh hello fancy eyes, for is device and designs, please see page 35. So, okay, so we've even got another example. Yeah, I think I said the longer one. Or unless that's not necessarily the longer campaign, that's just one that someone has played through. Unlike many games, we haven't created a character sheet for you. In keeping with this idea, you should be able to play Cogs, Cakes, and Swordsticks in a tea shop. All you need to create is a disposable or washable paper napkin and a pen or pencil. So if you're not lucky enough to be in a tea shop, then a piece of paper will also suffice. So yeah, I quite like that. It's a game that is very, very straightforward. Oh, come here, Fancy Alice. You're going to get everywhere. Hang on. Or do you want to say hello? No? Come on, you sit on my lap for a little bit. Not on the keyboard. When you create your character, the first thing you need to think of is a profession. Not only will this give you a job description, but a framework for deciding what attributes your character will have. So in CC&S, every character has 3 defining attributes: Cogs, Cakes, and Swordsticks. So Cogs covers anything mental or technical abilities or skills such as engineering, medicine, or flying. Cakes covers your personality, your ability to interact with other people, or how other people regard you. And then finally, Swordsticks. This attribute covers anything physical or fighting abilities or skills characters have. This is a pulp adventure, don't you know? Always room for a bit of old physical. Try to give the attributes interesting, descriptive features that will also help you define your character and how the world sees them, and make a note of it on your napkin. I do this. I love Zeppelins up there. Oh, that's interesting. So the attribute that best defines your character is the primary attribute, and that will give you a +3 bonus on any dice rolls associated with that attribute. The other 2 categories are their secondary attributes, and they'll give you a +2. And then we've got an example there. And of course, a name is very important for your character. It may also help to define your character's personality for you, for both you and other players. A very comprehensive list can be found here. Now, will this website work? I'm going to see. No, unbelievably, it does not work. Again, Fantasy name generator is probably your best one there. So there you go. And again, no alt text. And there's an example here of Roboto the Robust, the Circus Strongman. Yeah, simple, again, simple, straightforward enough. Actually, you could even just make this separately, perhaps, or like you maybe don't have to do it all at the same time, but it's quite straightforward, easy enough. I'm going to put Fancy Alice down because she's clearly agitated or overwhelmed by something outside. Yeah, I know, sweetheart. Oh, I know you want some cake as well. And I've got cat hair everywhere. Oh, she's come back up for something. Let's see. Where are you going, Fancy Alice? Are you going to lie down on the keyboard, or are you going to... Oh, and she lay down on the keyboard. Who could have guessed it? Alright, Fancy Alice. So, you might already have a name in mind before you decide on a profession and attributes. Oh, no, you didn't want to stay there? Alright. I think she's angling for treats. That's what she's doing. It doesn't really matter what order you do the character creation in. Sometimes a name might suggest a character, and sometimes the character's occupation will give rise to a name. Whatever feels right for the character, do whatever feels right for the character in mind. So that's quite good. Again, it's rare that we have a character creation that says we can just do it in any order. It doesn't matter. Like I can imagine you go, I would like to have, +3 in cakes and 2 in everything else. What does that indicate to me as a player? My glasses are very dirty. It's all falling apart on the stream. Clearly, because clearly it's because I said I don't like steampunk right at the beginning. Okay. If you're stuck, think about some of these questions. Does your character like getting their hands dirty, or do they prefer books? If books, they probably have an academic profession like teacher or scientist. If they like to get their hands dirty, they're more likely to be an inventor. An inventor or a tinkerer? Do they like exploring or discovering? If discovering, then potentially we're back to inventing or science. If exploring, that suggests someone who likes getting out there and finding new things. Alright, yes, that's discovery as well, but it's the out in the fresh air sort rather than stuck in the laboratory sort. Are they wealthy and educated, poor and struggling to survive, or somewhere in the middle? The character's social status could have a big impact on the type of profession they have, although you don't want to handicap your character's ability to join in the game by lumbering them with too much social baggage. Are they a performer or an artist? An actor or actress, a painter, a sculptor, a writer, an opera singer, a magician, or a music hall comedian? Are they famous or infamous? Believe it or not, it's actually possible to be both. Handle with care though, as this might make other characters reluctant to be associated with you. Is there a particular character missing from the party makeup? Would you mind playing that type of character? What sort of character most appeals to you when you watch a film or read a book? And how could that character be tweaked into a steampunk setting? And if you tried everything we suggested both here and chapter 1, and you're not sure what your character to be, and if you still aren't sure what you want your character to be, there are some sample characters in chapter 5. Great, so there's even more stuff, so that's quite good. They've given you a lot of stuff here. I think the only thing I would say would be nice to have like some tables that you could randomly roll on, just to make that, I like having that random chance rather than like thinking too hard about stuff. Foibles. A foible is a personality quirk that could potentially get the character into trouble, hint at something in their past, or just be there for some extra colour and to give the GM potential plot hooks for future stories. It can also be used during gameplay, if necessary to drive the plot forward or take the characters off in unexpected directions. Again, another great bit of artwork from Jeff there. So, if you want to give your characters some backstory, now is the time to do so. But if you want to see what springs to mind whilst you play, then it's time to get started on the game itself. Archetypes may want to draw a picture of their character. They can always use the trick from the QAGS, so Quick Ask Game System by Hex Games. I don't know that one. Of telling everyone who would play your character in a movie. Or even find a suitable... How do you pronounce that word? Dagurion? type of character. I assume just like a, it's like who plays you in a movie, that sort of thing. Excuse me. Ooh. Here we've got some attributes here, so some sample ones. So here's a selection of sample attributes you can give that may act as inspiration, as well as giving you an idea of the sort of abilities that would be covered by that particular attribute. A further list of attributes is mentioned throughout in book 3, so in that sort of nuts and bolts bit at the back. So we've got stuff here for cogs. We've got like a bit of a bodger, so that's more tinkering. We've got dab of paint, man or woman of science or person of science, divine diva, ooh, tongue-tied, windblown. Okay, I like that. Like you could really, again, it's that sort of thing. Like you can really, it's interesting. I was going to say tongue-tied, because that seems like a negative thing. So they may be shy in all situations, or they may only be bashful in the company of strangers or large crowds, being quite chatty with a small number of their social peers and close friends. It could also apply to anyone who is afraid to stand up in front of an audience. So why would you get a +2 for that? You know what I mean? Like a that seems to be like it's a neutral thing, but like I was like that should be surely in my head that could be a negative thing perhaps. So I don't know. Doesn't seem to be like there's any negative stuff. Bagged a big un. Big game hunter. Okay, fair. For all other general everyday skills, the players have a +1 to their dice rolls, just like an average run-of-the-mill person. However, for extremely skilled... wait, have I missed something? I think I have here. There we go. As mentioned above, primary attribute gets a +3 to any dice rolls covered by that attribute, and others get a secondary, which is a +2 to those areas. Right. For all other general and everyday skills, get a +1 bonus to your dice rolls, just like an average run-of-the-mill person. However, for extremely specialized skills, so for example, surgery, engineering, organizing massive formal balls, or fencing, then the characters have no bonus. They are subject to purely the whim of the dice. Okay, great. That's more of like a luck thing than anything else. Players should be encouraged to be as inventive with their attributes uses. Players should be encouraged to be inventive with their attribute uses, and if they can explain exactly how a particular attribute could cover a seemingly unrelated act, then the GM should feel free to run with it. However, if the GM disagrees with the alternative attribute use, their word is final. If the players are really struggling, and it's important for the plot, the GM could always allow them to use their character's foible as a dice modifier, although we'd recommend no more than +1 for that. Again, this foible is not appropriate for the situation. The GM should feel free to veto this. See, because that's, in my head, that tongue-tied is a foible, right? There will be cases where attributes could apparently fall under multiple areas. Most people would assume that firing a gun would automatically be covered by Swordsticks attribute, but it could also be covered a Cogs attribute, seeing that the gun is a technical piece of equipment. It doesn't really matter. There we go. It doesn't really matter which category an attribute ends up in, as long as the player can justify it to the GM and the GM agrees. It's always possible that having an attribute in a different category reflects not only some character quirk, but also a fundamentally different way of applying that attribute in adventures. Creativity and consent are the keys to entertaining and appropriate attributes. Fair enough. And then we've got the difficulties again. The exact point in time in which you should roll a die is a very personal decision and potentially fraught with difficulty. Roll too much and you risk lowering the game to nothing more than a number crunching exercise. And roll too little, you could be accused of steamrolling the plot to suit yourself. Here's some things to keep in mind. Okay. I mean, yeah, fine. I'm not going to read all this. I think, again, I'm just a bit like, again, I think it's the overwhelming bits of text. I'm like, okay, we've got the game, like, you know what? We've got the game mechanics out there. We know what they are. No problem there. Setting, I think this should be dead straightforward. It feels like it's over-explaining stuff, perhaps. As the GM and players will notice, this means that someone with a +3 attribute could automatically succeed at very easy or easy tasks without rolling a dice. Consider that +3 representing the character being an expert, given that attribute is hardly surprising. However, if it's dramatically appropriate, the GM can still call for a die roll. An otherwise easy activity might be attempted under non-conductive conditions, for example. Have you ever tried getting buttons fastened in a hurry? Rolling a natural 1 before any bonus is added is bad news. So there you go, a critical failure. And it means that the character has failed because there is some other factor affecting their ability to carry out what would have been an otherwise mundane task. So I think that's important to be like, a 1 is a failure of some sort. Okay. It is also impossible to achieve an extremely tricky task with a roll of a natural 6 without any skills given in the area. This represents sheer beginner's luck, or, if you prefer, fortune favouring the bold. Under other circumstances, the GM might like to reward a natural 6 with some added benefit to the result of the character's actions. This is all at the discretion of the GM, who may wish to seek suggestions from the other players as to dramatically satisfying effects, be they positive or negative. All I can see is like T-Rex there, anything. There you go, another cracking image. Fighting. So there will be times when a difficulty level is not appropriate. Primarily this is when two people are fighting each other or carrying out any other directly opposed actions, so maybe arguing or giving arguments across or giving speeches. Under these circumstances, those concerned roll their dice and apply the relevant bonuses to the attribute being used. Whoever gets the highest result wins. A draw is a draw. It is up to the GM and players to narrate the outcome of the action in line with the result. However, if the players and the GM want an epic blow-by-blow battle, say for example during a duel or fencing match, then the die rolls can be made for every stage of the combat, although we would encourage some colourful narration for everyone's actions. Some people prefer this style of fighting, others want to move on quickly to other parts of the plot. There is no right or wrong way to run fights, only the one that suits each in particular group's taste. So there you go. So it's nice that it's saying like you could fight, you could do it like blow by blow, but it might be interesting. I wondered like how many players you could play with this game. Like it's given 3 players and a GM for the starter scenario. I assume that would be the best one for it. I can't imagine any more than 5 players plus a GM. Yeah, I've got to be honest. It's a lot of text is just putting me off. It's so not overwhelming. It's just, it doesn't give anything. It doesn't, and there's no boxes. There's no headings breaking up stuff. So it's a little bit on that front. But it's nice that there's like these play examples here. Again, we probably would like them in boxes a little bit. Yeah, it's all fine. Let's go to damage, death, and healing and see how far that gets us. So if a character is injured, either as a result of combat or some other dreadful mishap, they lose a level in all attribute categories. And this means, yeah, blah, 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 just dropping a -1 to things. Further injury reduces the levels again until the primary attribute hits 0. So when this happens, the character is knocked unconscious and will require some medical aid. So interestingly, yeah, so basically it's when all your attributes are at 0, not just the main primary one, right? Especially if all the stuff affects all the attributes. Death. The GMs should not write plots that deliberately seek to bump off characters. It's very poor form and is guaranteed to alienate players. Sometimes, however, death cannot be avoided, and there are many films and novels where the major protagonist dies partway through because it serves the purpose of the story. CCNS is a pulp game, and people do have the habit of getting bumped off in them too. There will be times where, despite the GM's best attempts to avoid it, the dice and the story will just say it's time for a character to call it a day and head off to a big engineering workshop in the sky. As a GM, trying to keep characters alive in the face of all odds diminishes the story you are trying to tell, no matter how tempting it may be. As long as death is dramatically satisfying, it can add greatly to the atmosphere of a game, and the players will respect if it is handled sensitively and appropriately. Players, even in pulp games, you can stretch coincidences too far, and sometimes you just need to let go. Interesting. What? That's a word with a weird line. Huh. Be dignified about it and give your character the best possible send-off you can. You can always develop a long-lost relative to avenge their death at a later date. Should this situation arise, the GM should always allow the player to narrate a glorious, heroic deathbed scene or act of remarkable self-sacrifice for a full tear-jerking effect. And remember, if you don't find the body, they ain't dead. And sometimes when you do find the body, they still ain't dead. Again, I quite like the tone is fine. Like again, it balances that like little bit of jokiness. We saw that recently with the rats RPG that we looked at last week. That sort of like had a good balance of like being, hey, we're in the world, but also like being quite silly about it. So I like this. It feels very jokey. Yeah. But again, the difference with the other games we've looked at recently is that you could read out the text easily, like the one we looked at on Tuesday, whose name I've completely forgotten. Doesn't matter, but it was you could read it out quite easily to people. Oh, it was Outgunned. Yes, Outgunned. You could just easily write it out to people. Healing. Exactly how healing works is at the GM's discretion, although we may suggest using a system mentioned in Chapter 1. First, a successful first aid or medical type roll restores 1 attribute level to the recipient. That's across all attributes. Naturally, the character need not be conscious to have an attribute level restored by a well-timed medical intervention. However, to be completely restore a character to full health if they've been badly hurt, should require rest and proper medical treatment, or cake. This should become a part of the game or could occur in the downtime between sessions. Alternatively, GMs may allow anyone with a medical skill to bring a character all the way back up to perfect glowing health in time for the next scene if they roll well enough, with nothing more to show than the character's narrow escape than a strategically placed bandage or scar. For, as we have already noted, God, the ladies do love a man with a strategically placed bandage or scar. But we don't need that line though. Oh dear. Whichever system is decided upon, the main point is to be consistent and stick with it. If everyone agrees a system isn't working for you, then adapt it to the one that does. And then we've got some stuff about changing attributes and specialization. We're not going to look into that. Again, I'm guessing it's going to be like, you can just do it. There you go. You can swap primary with one of their secondaries. Okay, it's straightforward. It seems to take a lot of text and examples of it. It feels like very written out in detail, but I'm just there as someone who has played a lot of games. I think even for a player vaguely new to RPGs, I'm like, we do not need this. It's a very simple system. This could have easily been put down onto like 2 or 3 pages. What have we got here though? So even a character is happy with their abilities, there's always room for improvement. Reputation points may represent a character's growing fame or infamy. They have 1 reputation point because they are experts in their own field but may know little outside of it. Every time a player rolls a natural 6, their character gains 1 reputation point. The GM may also wish to reward players with excellent characterization, be it heroic or dastardly, as long as it is in keeping with the character's usual behaviour, or there is a good reason for the deviation. So it's basically inspiration, right? At the end of the session, there is an extra reputation point available. This is for the players to award to one of their number as a reward for playing the character to their help during this game. Oh, I like that. Just who gets it should be decided as a group discussion. A player isn't allowed to nominate themselves for the point, and there should be a consensus on who is rewarded. In the event of a tie, the GM has a casting vote. I like that. I think that's quite good because you could tie that into stars and wishes, couldn't you? I think that's a really good thing. And yeah, actually talking about it as well. So in the event of a failed ability attempt, including a natural one, the player can spend a reputation point in exchange for another die roll. They can only do this once per challenge. They can't keep spending reputation points on the same roll over and over again until they get a result they want. The reroll is granted because the character realises just in the nick of time they're about to do something really stupid that could ruin their reputation. If they fail again, they'll know what they did wrong, but their fate was not on their side this time. Okay, I like that. I'm guessing you could bank however many number of reputation points as well. Oh, no, it says here, 6. Once spent, they do not regenerate, but any left unspent at the end of the gaming session are carried forward to the next one. Nice. If a player wishes, once they have acquired 6 reputation points, they can trade them in for a specialization point. It must be chosen to fit within the respective attribute and reflect the way the character has been played so far, as it represents good old-fashioned, in the field, hands-on experience. They can be added to die rolls covered by that particular specialization and no others. So what does that mean? So it's not like a plus... I was going to say, hang on. So let's read this one out. So Roberta has a man with a shed, tinkerer and gadget maker as his primary attribute, so that's a +3. So during the course of the story, he gains 6 reputation points and decides to trade them in for a specialization point. As he seems to spend a lot of time dealing with clockwork mechanisms for one sort or another, he decides that his specialism should be in clockwork. So from now on, every time he deals with a clockwork mechanism, he can add a single +1 to anything he rolls. Oh, an additional +1 to anything. So yeah, so you're just adding up more and more specializations and stuff. Okay, straightforward. Interesting. And then there's an example of play, which we're not going to look at. Oh dear, is it a very long one? No. Look at that image. Oh, Jeff. There we go. That's Jeff's work. Nice. I like it. I like the little skull on the bag. And having little, again, no cogs on it. So that's always good. And then creating stories. We're not going to look at that, I don't think. Interesting non-player characters. So again, ways to come up with. So we've got some examples of background, and then we've got the actual setting itself. Interesting. I'm not too fussed about looking at the setting, to be honest with you. Oh, it's very detailed. Look, there's the Americans there. But I'm just going to quickly look through. Oh, cakes. We've got Europe as well. Okay, so it's nice that they've done a bit of... sorry, I lied. No, so it goes through... I see what they've done there. They've done Cogs. So the history of engineering and science is discussed. Okay, I like that. And then in Europe and in the Americas as well. Would be nice, possibly, if you had another writer to maybe talk about in the rest of the world. Just to make it a bit more rounded, perhaps. We've got timeline there as well. Cakes, social and artistic refinements of the empire. So Europe and Americas. Again, it's the empire stuff as well. We've got some links here to fashion. Let's see if this works. Oh, it's loading. It's loading. It's worked. Amazing work. That's very good. I'm glad that one does work. And what about this one? Moving pictures, a well-resourced site. Yeah, that works well. It's a bit old, that site, I'll be honest. The history of discovery of cinematography. So that's nice that they're giving you examples of stuff. Again, maybe what I would have done, like show my research, give the milestones, the touchstones. So here's some books you can read. Here's some films that you can watch online on YouTube for free. Like the moving pictures of. Oh, that's a great picture as well. Like that. And look at those legs, little thin legs. And then another timeline, and then we're gonna have Swordsticks, right? Unfortunate fisticuffs and political machinations of the Empire is discussed. So, warfare, unfortunately. Yeah. It's a little dead. It reminds me of, like, was it those mid-noughties, like, games? I'm sure there's, like, I'm trying to think of, like, there's, like, online internet games which had similar, like, styles to this. Interesting. And then altercations. So he's using stuff from the real world here. Interesting. Victorian walls. Does that work? That link? No, absolutely not. Ooh, do not go on that link. All right. So at least it has all this information, and then here's a scenario, device and designs. Fair enough. And that's the longer one with some more characters, potential people. So these are NPCs, I think he was talking about before. Fair enough. Showdown. Who's behind it all? Sample characters. There you go. So, Prudence Wilberforce. Great name. Nice. Okay, so then there's a bit more balance in terms of gender there. Very good. And then that's it. Then it goes on to book 2. There we go. Yeah, so I appreciate I didn't read through all the setting. I mean, maybe I should have done, but I don't think we... Like I said, I'm not the biggest steampunk fan myself. But let's talk about the actual setting. the actual system itself, shall we? So, what do we like about it? It's very quick to put together. I think, again, if you're out somewhere at the pub, or if you are in a tea shop or all things, you go, hey, why don't we do this? And I think if you've got a group of people, like it could be a half an hour game, and there's always going to be someone who has a d6 on you, and you can roll it. So I don't mind that. I think it's straightforward. I like how the character creation, you can just come up with an idea of like what the character looks like, and then easily translate it into like free attributes and having something specialized on that. I think that's quite fun. Or having a name first, or putting the attributes first. Like I like that. I would have liked to have more random tables just to make that. I mean, we've got sample characters, which is fine, but I would, and some examples, but I would have liked to see some random tables of stuff. I just think that's quite good. I think the death mechanic, sorry, the injury mechanic, yeah, it seems weird to be like, your highest priority is at 0, because it sounds like all of them are going to be at 0 if it's going to be, takes your one level of attribute away from all attributes, you know? So maybe I would change it to be like, take one level of an attribute away, rather than all attributes. So there's that. I don't like the layout. I think that's the thing I've been struggling with. It's tiny writing, let's face it. Like, that's tiny writing, unless that's like a big A4 book, which it probably isn't. I think it's going to be like one of those smaller books that you can find. It's just almost impossible to read. I would have liked to have more headings. Certainly this first part here, it's giving advice to the GM, giving advice to the players. I think we've been spoilt with looking at player principles and GM principles very recently. The things of like acts, Act 1, Act 2, fine. And yeah, that first 8 pages, and maybe I poo-pooed that preview, so I'll put that back in actually, put preview here. That's all you need to run this game. So there's a free preview of it on Drive for RPG, which you can get the link in the chat. So I think it's fine, but I don't, like, again, I would be like, okay, let's take this system and use it for any other setting. Just because, again, I'm just like Cogs, Kate, Swordsticks, that's the only thing that connects it to possibly a steampunk or Victoria era, perhaps, or Edwardian era. Yeah, I don't know. And I think it struggles from a layout problem. And interesting, the foibles don't really do anything. It's not a negative. So it's not a positive or negative system. Like, you can't roll 2d6 or anything like that. The reputation points, I think, are quite good. That's the reroll. And going to specialization, I quite like that. So you collect stuff up, so you always have that XP. Yeah, I just don't, I'm not excited about it, unfortunately. I don't feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do. If anything, it feels like you could rewrite this, and that whole first bit. What's it? That was 18 pages. I think you could have done it in 5. Like, literally, you didn't need like that. I think that's the thing. So that first chapter, the first 8 pages, kind of all you need. Then the expansion on it doesn't really add anything to it, and I wonder who that's for. Like, I feel like, again, brand new to role-playing games, maybe, but even then, I don't know. Or maybe aimed at a younger audience. It just feels like I don't know. It over-explains it, and then you have this, the play example throughout, which I'm always for play examples, but there seems to be a lot for it. These questions are quite good in terms of helping you think about stuff, but again, I think I'll just narrow it down because we've got 7 questions. I don't know. It feels like it's trying too hard. Maybe I'm just a bit like, And then obviously goes into a lot of detail about the setting it's created. Which, again, is fine, like, understandable. So, but what would have been nice is, so what does it say here? It says, sorry, I'll zoom in a little bit. It's broken down into 3 sections, each dealing with a different aspect of the history of the Empire. So I like that. I like how it doesn't do it all as one big, like, lore dump. It goes, we're going to focus specifically on science. We're going to focus specifically on the arts, and then on the warfare. So I appreciate that. And there's a brief timeline for those who don't wish to delve into the minutiae. So I like that. Again, so you have that accessibility stuff. I kind of wish there was like a little thing that said like, because it said we're not going to dwell on the inequalities and all the, we're not going to look at all that. It's about having fun and the pulp, etc. But you can't get away from that in steampunk. Like, it is quite a big, let's go to the continent and we'll go holiday there, haha, So I would like it if, it would have been, what would have been cool? I appreciate, again, Empire instantly means British Empire, but they have stuff about Europe, they have stuff about the Americas. It'd be good to have another section going, what else is going on in the rest of the world? Because what if you had an alternate history that is set in, I don't know, Japan or in... India, Peru. Like, I think just be cool to do that and maybe get away from, change the look of things. Like when you think about, like, for example, Bridgerton, they've made a big effort to be like, this is our diversity. We're trying to change, flip the narrative about Regency, which is again very nostalgic, but it's set in a time where we don't like foreigners. We don't, it's like the war with XYZ France and beyond, and that's why I do appreciate what Bridgerton is trying to do. It's not the best at it, but at least it's trying to do it. So this is the thing. I think here, this will be my big improvement. If it's going to be rewritten, have a section on like, hey, because you said like do things that players want to enjoy. That so yeah, have that safety section written out properly, and not sort of hand wave it. Again, it's in a time before they had proper safety section. Having another person going for it and having other people's opinion, because obviously only one person has written this, and obviously someone who's done a lot of research on that, but it would be nice just to have the rest of the world point of view, because what if we want to look at those instead, especially because pulp adventures take place in a lot of places. Let's not forget Indiana Jones goes to certain places which turn out to be savage, and it's not, so... Anyway, yeah, I mean, would I recommend it? I mean, check out the free preview. It's free, it's 8 pages. I think the system is simple enough that you could take it and use it for anything you want. But the actual, I don't know. Again, I think my bias of not liking steampunk has gotten away a little bit of this read through, so I apologise for that. But check it out. If it's something that interests you, please go have a look and tell me I'm wrong. I'm very much I'm happy to be told I'm wrong about these things because, yeah. But I think the system itself, you know what? If anything, take the system and use it as your beginning game for something, anything. Like it could be, I don't know, you could do the high fantasy and change it to something like, I don't know, crowns, wands and swords, that sort of thing. You could, that you can change it all around. So it's a very basic system that you can easily hack. So I do like that. I think it's enough to get you up and going, which it does do. So I think that's the key thing. So I'd take that system. I would ignore everything else. So there you go. That's my sort of probably not very good critique of this particular game. But you know what? We've done it. We've had a look at it. I probably will never look at it again. And that's my £10 gone. I spent £10 so you folks don't have to. All good. So friends, let's go back to main Fiona Camp. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me. I very much appreciate it. I run What Am I Rolling, which is a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPG systems and we do interviews with game designers. I'm also one half of the DM's Book Club, which is a weekly book club podcast where we talk about some Dungeons & Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing campaigns. If you're actually interested in steampunk stuff, check out the 2 episodes we've recently done on Eberron, because that was actually a very exciting and interesting setting, and really one of those things where I was like, oh, actually, yes, I do want to play that. And it was, I think also, it has spoiled me a little bit because it was such a well-written world, the Eberron continent as well. So it's something I was like, oh, I'm really interested to know more. And what was good about that, maybe compared to this game, and to be fair, I obviously didn't look at the core setting a lot, so I can't tell you, but it talked about the different kinds of Cold War tensions between all these different states, and political intrigue, and there was so much of it that was just interesting. Whereas here, Empire indicates something to me, so maybe that's the reason why I'm just like, ugh. So yeah, check out Eberron. Check out our episodes on Eberron. What else is there? Yeah, keep an eye on the feeds. Certainly the What Am I Rolling feeds, because there's going to be an announcement at the end of September, which I'm very excited about. Can't talk about it just yet, but I'm doing lots of work around it, and it's it'll be interesting. I'm excited, but I'm being apprehensive as well. So yeah, check out the feeds on that. If anyone else is interested, check out the Discord as well. Got the Where and DM's Book Club Discord, which is a nice group of people just chitty-chatting away about stuff, mostly RPG related, but we check in with each other as well. So more than welcome to come. If you're not been put off by me going, oh, steampunk, come join that. That'd be good. Next week, I've put up some more streams coming up. So what have we got? We have. Let me look. We've got next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central, 5 p.m. BST, The Hike That Binds Us, which I'm looking forward to. I've had that on my list for a little while. So it's a role-playing game where the players come together with custom characters, hikers, a backpack full of items, and an attempt to finish, or better yet survive, a long, dangerous hike together. Hikers will choose between different actions, so travelling, crafting, hunting, fishing, etc., perform checks, sleep check, injury check, etc., and attempt to survive while interacting with an immersive world around them. I'm very excited for it because I have the PDF for it, and it's very intriguing. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. That's next Tuesday, and then next Thursday, I've bitten the bullet. We're going to look at Shadow Dark, folks. It's the winner of the Any stuff, best product, best RPG. So after looking at Outgunned on Tuesday, I was like, I can't put this off anymore. I should look at Shadow Dark, because that's the one that won gold for both. So in Shadow Dark, you and a group of crawlers use magic, steel, and wits to delve into mysterious ruins, lost cities, and monster-infested steppes. Wondrous treasures and long-forgotten secrets await you, but don't let your last torch burn out, or you could be swallowed by the Shadow Dark. 5th edition players will find what they've been waiting for, an intuitive and complete TTRPG that serves as a seamless bridge into the heart of old-school Renaissance. And old-school gamers will find a system that is familiar and nostalgic, but with major quality-of-life upgrades that modernise the old-school experience. So there you go. Again, I'm a little bit apprehensive of that particular RPG, but hey, you know what? Like I said, got to look at these things, otherwise, I don't learn anything. So those are the two we're going to do next week. So that's going to be here on this channel. 2 long didn't reads of what was I going to say? The Hike That Binds Us and Shadow Dark next week, 11 a.m., 5 p.m. BST on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Go check that out. Thank you, folks, so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weeks. I'm going to look for the end of stream button, and I'll see you guys next time.